Okay, so imagine a 41-year-old free agent signs a contract worth $8 million over 2 years, barely more than the league minimum for a veteran of his experience, and within about a week that contract turns into one of the biggest economic stories in professional sports. Ticket prices multiply. A jersey sells out before the player has practiced with his new teammates. A basketball franchise gains hundreds of millions of dollars in value almost overnight. That is roughly what happened when LeBron James signed with the Philadelphia 76ers this summer, and understanding why requires understanding that his paycheck and his economic value are almost completely disconnected from each other. This is the strange economics of a superstar athlete near the end of his career, where the smallest contract of his life is producing some of the largest ripple effects anyone has ever tried to measure. Let's start with the deal itself, because on paper it looks like a mistake. James signed for $8 million total across 2 seasons with a player option, meaning he will earn something close to $3,900,000 in the first year alone. Compare that to the contract he was playing under with the Los Angeles Lakers, and it works out to roughly a $48 million pay cut, reportedly the largest voluntary pay cut in the history of the league for a player of his stature. He also agreed to a trade kicker set at 15%, a clause that would pay him extra if the team ever trades him elsewhere, and he wasn't even allowed to negotiate a no-trade clause given the short length of the deal. On a pure salary basis, Philadelphia got the best player available at a price closer to what a rookie off the bench makes. But a superstar's real economic footprint was never really about his salary. It's about everyone else's spending that happens because he showed up. The first and most immediate layer of that footprint is ticket pricing, and it moved almost instantly. The average purchase price for a 76ers home game the previous season sat around $68. Within days of the signing being confirmed, the cheapest available ticket for the team's first preseason home game, a game James likely wouldn't even play significant minutes in, was going for $283, an increase of more than 300% over the team's normal average. One ticket marketplace reported that demand for 76ers games grew by more than 200 times what it had been before the announcement, with searches for the team up by roughly 470 times. On another platform, the get-in price for a single preseason matchup against Boston jumped from around $107 to over $540 in under an hour. Ticket brokers who tracked this kind of thing were blunt about it. They called it the LeBron effect, the same pattern they'd watched play out every time he switched teams for more than 2 decades, and they expected the team's full-season average ticket price to run about 40% higher than the year before, even before accounting for how road games in other cities would spike too, since opposing arenas raise prices whenever James comes to town. The second layer is merchandise, and it might be the fastest-moving revenue stream of all because it doesn't require James to play a single game. The first run of his new number 23 76ers jersey sold out on the league's official retailer in roughly 2 hours. That is an extraordinary sellout speed for a jersey representing a player who had yet to appear on the court for his new team even once. Local print shops around Philadelphia reported a surge in custom merchandise orders within hours of the news breaking, everything from t-shirts to novelty items built around his new nickname in the city. There's also a venue layer sitting underneath all of this that most fans never think about. The 76ers play in an arena that opened back in 1996, built for around $210 million and seating a little over 21,000 people for basketball. That building is already approaching the end of its useful life by modern arena standards, and the team has plans in motion to build a replacement, a joint project shared with the city's hockey team, expected to open sometime around the year 2030. In the meantime, every premium suite, every courtside seat, and every hospitality package in the current building just became more valuable overnight, because a limited number of the best seats in the house now have a limited number of remaining seasons to watch one of the greatest players in the sport's history play in person. That's scarcity. An aging building with a countdown clock on it plus a future Hall of Famer inside it tends to push luxury inventory prices up faster than general admission prices, since the wealthiest buyers are the ones least willing to wait and see. The third layer is the value of the franchise itself. Before the signing, most valuations place the 76ers in the middle tier of NBA franchises. Within days of James officially joining the roster, Forbes had the team valued at around $5.45 billion, while a separate estimate from CNBC put the number closer to $6.1 billion. Neither of those numbers reflects anything the team did on the court, because at the time no games had been played. What changed was the market's expectation of future ticket revenue, media attention, and sponsorship interest, all of it priced in before a single basket was scored. Then there's the layer that spreads furthest beyond the arena walls, the regional economic impact. A consulting group that specializes in this kind of forecasting, the Boyd Company, projected that James joining the 76ers could generate somewhere between $250 and $430 million in total regional economic activity over his first year with the team. That includes hotel stays for visiting fans, restaurant and bar spending near the arena on game nights, increased tourism tied to nationally televised matchups, and even secondary effects like higher demand for parking and ride-share trips. Economists who study this are careful to point out that this kind of number is genuinely hard to pin down, since it depends heavily on how many of those dollars are truly new spending versus money that would have been spent somewhere else in the city anyway. But even the more conservative estimates agree on the direction, if not the exact size of the effect. To understand whether any of this actually holds up, it helps to look at what happened the last two times James switched teams, because this isn't a new experiment. When James left Cleveland for Miami back in 2010, researchers later studying the move found that the number of restaurants and bars within a short walk of the Cavaliers arena began to decline, dropping from more than 190 establishments down to under 170 over the following years. At the same time, the number of similar establishments near the Miami Heat's arena climbed steadily, eventually passing 210 by the time he left. A Harvard economist involved in that research found that James's presence had a statistically significant, measurable effect on both the number of nearby restaurants and total employment at those restaurants, estimating an increase of around 23% in local employment tied to his presence. When he returned to Cleveland in 2014, the pattern reversed itself again. Restaurant counts near the arena climbed back up, and employment followed with it. On the financial side, Forbes tracked the Cavaliers' franchise value, dropping from around $476 million to about $355 million in the single year after James left for Miami, a drop of more than $100 million tied to the departure of one player. The gate receipts told the same story in plainer numbers. In James's final season with the Cavaliers, before that first departure, the team sold about 20,562 tickets per game at an average price near $56, for total regular season ticket revenue above $47 million. The very next season, without him, average attendance fell to around 17,300. The average ticket price dropped to about $43, and total gate revenue fell to roughly $30 million. That's a swing of nearly $17 million in a single season tied to one player leaving the roster, and it happened before anyone had built a model or written a report about it. The numbers were just sitting there in the box office records. Not every economist agrees on how large these numbers really are, and it's worth hearing the skeptical case too. Ahead of James's first return to Cleveland, one widely cited estimate put his impact at close to $500 million for the local economy, a figure that other researchers later picked apart piece by piece. Sports economists have long pointed out that these regional impact projections tend to assume every dollar spent near an arena is new money entering the local economy, when in reality, much of it is simply shifted spending, money fans would have spent on other entertainment in the same city regardless. One economist calculated that for a $500 million impact to be real, every single resident of the greater Cleveland area would need to spend roughly $240 a year specifically because of James, a number he considered wildly unlikely. The honest conclusion sits somewhere between the hype and the skepticism. James clearly moves real money, measurable in ticket prices, attendance, and nearby business activity. But the eye-popping regional totals reported in headlines are closer to an optimistic ceiling than a guaranteed floor. So what does the realistic range look like for Philadelphia specifically? In the optimistic scenario, The 76ers build a genuine championship contender around James, Joel Embiid, and their other stars. Ticket prices hold near their inflated preseason levels through the regular season. National television networks schedule the team into premium primetime slots because James remains one of the most reliably watched players in the sport. And the franchise valuation gains become permanent rather than temporary, similar to what happened in Miami during his 4 seasons there. In that version, Philadelphia's hospitality and tourism sector captures a meaningful, lasting slice of new spending tied directly to his presence. In the more cautious scenario, some of the current frenzy is simply preseason hype that cools once regular season ticket prices settle into a smaller premium over last year's average. Injuries limit how many games a 42-year-old plays across an 82-game season, and a chunk of the reported regional spending turns out to be Philadelphia area residents redirecting money they were already going to spend on entertainment rather than genuinely new dollars flowing into the city from outside. Both outcomes are plausible, and both have happened before in James's career, depending on the city and the season. What makes this whole situation unusual, even by the standards of professional sports economics, is that almost none of the enormous financial activity is captured by James himself. He signed for a fraction of his market value, took the largest pay cut of his career, and still triggered ticket surges, merchandise sellouts, and billion-dollar valuation jumps within days. The team, the league, the ticket brokers, the local restaurants, and the city's tourism industry are the ones positioned to capture the upside of his arrival, while he collects a modest veteran's paycheck and, if all goes well, one more shot at a championship before his career ends. The player isn't the business here. He never really was. He's the reason the business exists in the first place.